Hey everybody, welcome to episode 69 of the Is That Normal podcast, and we are so glad that you have tuned in.
And you know, Randall, I kind of even wonder, that phrase "tuned in," like is that a phrase that people use anymore? How many people? What's the age where you stop understand what that means? Because we grew up still. We're old enough, I guess,
Yes.
that we grew up in a time where we had TV and we had radio, and you tuned into those things
Yes.
when it was going on. But now it's like streaming and on demand, and
Yeah.
I hardly know anybody who watches like things when they air on TV or anything like that anymore. So
I intentionally don't even watch like shows that I'm like home when I know they're on. I purposely don't watch them so that I can skip through commercials later. It's
Right.
It's
Yeah.
crazy world, which is very different. Like I said,
Yeah.
like you said, than when we grew up, where we had like appointment viewing, things that you just didn't miss. And so, let's talk about what were some of your favorite.
So what's interesting? So another podcast I listen to quite a bit is Ear Biscuits by Rhett and Link.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to an episode there's not too long ago, and they were talking about things that they wish they could bring back from their childhood, one of them was Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes, that was like a big deal.
It was. And I actually, just this week, this is really interesting because I was studying about the graduates, high school graduates right now, because they were all born in 2002 and 2003. And I was just trying to figure out, what was different in their lifetime from anyone before that. And in 2002 is when the networks stopped having Saturday morning cartoons as a regular part of their programming. Like that ended. So if the kids who are graduating high school right now, they never grew up in that era.
Wow, that's crazy.
And but that was huge for me. Like, I mean, when the new season came out in the fall, like I got the TV guide and I figured out what channel I was going to be on at what times during Saturday morning. Like it was a big deal.
And it was exciting because we didn't have cartoons like on demand at our fingertips any time of the day. So it was like there were certain times of the day, and Saturday morning being the time primarily where that was when you got to see cartoons, and that was kind of it.
And it's what drove a lot of our conversations, on the school bus, at lunch.
Yeah.
I mean, that it's like the things that we tuned into drove our conversations.
Yeah. So what were some of your favorites?
Oh, some of my favorites. I was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, if I can get that out of my mouth. I love that. There's a period of time where the WWF had an animated cartoon. And that was some good stuff. It's like I was both a wrestling fan and a cartoon fan. Like
that reminds me too. The next, like right up there with Saturday morning cartoons, were always the commercials for the toys that went along with them, because it was like sugary breakfast cereals and toys. That was what was advertised during Saturday morning cartoons. So it was like always like the coolest, like new wrestling action figure or crazy like Hot Wheels loop to loop tracks or things like that. So that was always fun too.
High production there. That was good stuff.
Yes,
that's good. And I've really that kind of carried on. Later in life, I think it was. There's just a handful of radio stations, and that's how you found new music. And so what station you tuned into kind of picked who your friends were and what music you were listening to. And then when I got like in middle school and high school, it was like, what happened on Saturday Night Live on Saturday night? I mean, that was like the conversation that was going on. And so, so I think that's so interesting, that tuned in concept really formulated a lot of our relationships, what we thought about, what our conversations were.
Yeah. And there were only so many options.
Yeah.
Now it's so vast that it's hard.
Ultimate optionality. That's a term I've heard recently, and we have less shared experiences.
Yeah.
And so so that's as we go into what we're going to talk about today. We've been doing this podcast for 18 months, and we hope that we become an ongoing partner with some people in parenting, in investing in teenagers and young adults, and we hope that this is becoming something that people tune into, and it can help us drive not just our conversation, but where we're going. With the spiritual development of our families. And so that's really what we want to do. We want to become that forum or a place for discussions and questions and support. So
whether you've been tuning in for a while, or maybe this is your first time, or you're relatively new to the podcast, we just thought it'd be great today to take some time and really just kind of talk about our vision for what this podcast is, and why we started it, why we're still doing it, and maybe some suggestions on how to connect with us and with the content, and just some of the things that we've where we've been and maybe where we're going.
Right.
Well, welcome back to the Is That Normal podcast, where we really just share thoughts and resources and hope for those that are raising children, particularly teens and young adults, in a really crazy world that we live in. And so we do this podcast every other week. On Tuesdays they come out, and we love for you to check that out. But in addition to that, in between, we have a lot of other resources and things that we share. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, YouTube, and then we have a website, isthatnormal.org. And then you can also just email us, connect at isthatnormal.org, and subscribe to our email list. Follow us on whatever platform you're consuming podcasts and those types of things to get a lot of the things that we share in between. And really our goal with that, Mark, is just we want to, again, be a resource. We've said this over and over. We want to be a resource and just give parents that are trying to navigate raising godly kids in a difficult environment, difficult world we live in, some resources and just encouragement as well in what we're doing. So tell us a little bit more, about that and kind of why we started this and why we do this.
Yeah, so over 20 years of youth ministry, some of the things that I began seeing that were concerns and needs were just how much we needed to connect and resource and encourage parents. And I've over the years learned that parents are the number one and the best youth leaders for their children as they are teenagers going into young adults. You have the greatest influence over your kids, for better or for worse, as far as where their spiritual life is going to go. And so, and we also know that it's hard. A plus B doesn't equal C when you're raising kids. Like you can invest, and it looks like you're getting zero return on your investment. And you just and you don't know when that's going to click in or if it's going to click. But we still do it because it's the right thing to do. And so we need encouragement and support and all those things. But the other thing is that life is busy. We're no longer a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 culture. There's so many things pulling at parents. So it's hard to get us all in the same room at the same time. And so I'm hearing, over and over from people in our age group and the parents of my teenagers age group that they're listening to podcasts or listening to audiobooks, that they have space in their commutes or their workout time or whatever to listen to content. And so we said, hey, maybe we should try making a platform to do that for our parents. And really, initially it was for the parents at our church, but then we realized, hey, let's put this out on a platform. So if it helps other people and blesses people beyond that, that is great. But we really just wanted to be a constant voice in parents' minds, hearts, and ears saying, we're for you, we support you, we care for you, we know this is hard, but we need to keep doing it, and here's some ways to do that as we try to lead our kids towards Christ. So and I grabbed you because you're an awesome partner with me on things, and like you said in our last episode, we share a lot of weird commonalities, so we have fun things to talk about. That's true. So there you go. That's been the last 18 months, and it's been wonderful.
And it's been great. And over the last year and a half, we've covered a lot of content. As we said, this is episode 69, and we've had a lot of awesome guests that have come on and shared insight and just brought great resources to us. So if somebody's a new listener, where would you suggest maybe would be a good place to start?
I honestly would say the last episode 68 from a couple of weeks ago, would be a great place to start. We reviewed a book about family discipleship. We talked about how to make a family discipleship plan, and there's lots of philosophy and nuts and bolts and stuff that we've covered in other episodes. But it's a really good starting place if you're just like saying, hey, I really need to know what the practical first steps are of trying to lead my family towards Christ. Is a great place to start. And so and it's current. So so it's a really good place. Another thing that we do often is we try to to cover resources that are easy for you to engage with. And so we talk about a lot of books and other websites and things like that so that you can connect. And so there's several episodes we've done over those kind of things that maybe you'd want to go back and check out. Episode 3 was a great one on the books Growing With and Growing Young that Fuller Seminary did about what's going on in teen and young adult culture right now. And really, the Growing With is probably the top book I would encourage parents of those age groups to read right now, because it just really talks about that shift of what roles are happening and how you navigate that. And I know for us, it was invaluable as our kids went from late teens into their 20s to try to start figuring some of that out. Yeah. So that's a great one. That's episode 3. Episode 7, we talk about vision for families. I think it's so good to think about where you're going. Yeah. And so that was a good episode. And then episode 64, we reviewed a book, Are My Kids on Track? From some clinical psychologists who are also Christians that just talk about how you navigate some of the difficult emotional, mental health issues and spiritual issues kids are facing today, but they do a great job of helping you with that. Yeah. So those are some good ones for some resource things to check into.
Yeah. And for me, if I had to pick a few, we've had some we've covered a wide range of topics, and some of the ones that come to mind for me is, I know we did one where we talked about electronic devices and how for parents and families, how do you handle that? And the reason that comes to mind is just because it's so practical, and it's something that we've hear over and over and over, and it's huge.
We're all dealing with.
It's everybody's dealing with that. How do you balance, what's healthy, and how to manage that. So that was a great episode. We did just not too long ago what to do when your family is at DEF CON 2, and we covered a really interesting article about just the kind of the way the nuclear family is changing, and how that might not be a bad thing.
Yes.
And how just a really interesting perspective on how what we think is the way things have always been, and maybe it's not necessarily, and how.
And the other side of that, I think that's so important to acknowledge, and as Christian leaders trying to encourage people, is sometimes we still talk to everybody like they are this type of family, and the average majority percentage of families are not that always been intact family. That's just not everybody's story, and so we need to speak into what God's doing in all of these situations.
Yeah.
So
and then we just did a really unique one where we polled, kind of anonymously polled some teenagers and said, hey, what are some things you wish your parents knew? And so we kind of talked through some of those things, and maybe shared some things from the perspective of some real life teenagers of things that maybe they felt like maybe their parents just didn't understand, or were maybe missing the mark, or that they just wish they had a better grasp on. And so that was a really neat episode, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really good, because we got to hear from the kids as well, and that's part of what we talk about a lot too, is just trying to figure out how to have that open line of communication with your kids. And so it's good to hear some feedback from them.
And then just a total side note, but my personal, just for fun, Brett Harrison rapping on our podcast. Probably
what are these kids listening to? Probably not Brett Harrison rapping, but we enjoyed it. That was a good. Yeah, we have a lot of fun too.
We do have a lot of fun.
We've had a lot of fun. Interestingly, another episode that's would be a good one to check out is Should You Die on That Hill? Just talk about how we deal with when our kids disagree with us.
Yeah.
And interestingly, and I don't know whether it's because our content, I think it's more likely people are searching for something else and found us. But that is our most downloaded podcast right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Should You Die on That Hill? But it is a big deal. Like
it is.
We are in such a divisive culture, and so often right now generations are butting heads over things, and so we talked about some things in that. I think that was really helpful.
Understanding what's worth going to battle for.
Yeah. I also like, really, you point out a lot of things we do. We try to be real practical. We give you a resource. We talk about some real actionable plans. We talk about real issues that we face, on a regular basis. We've talked about curfews. We did an episode about drinking coffee because that's really important. Yes. But we talked about how it's a rite of passage, right? And that was episode 8. We talked about that we've got to create those milestones for our kids. We talked about how to ask good questions. Again, that line of communication, episode 11. We just kind of talked through what it looks like to not ask closed questions, but ask open questions so we can really search out what's going on in their lives.
And a few episodes ago, we had our friend Jared Wallace on, who shared some great insight, and we kind of talked about extracurricular activities and how those fit into our life and our schedule, and how we prioritize, how we spend our time as a family, how we allow our kids, how much is too much and how much is just enough, and so great conversation there as well.
And then we just did we did an episode on family game night and highlight a bunch of games to play. We did an episode on what to binge watch on Netflix. And so we cover a wide range of things.
We really do. We really do. Yeah.
But I think kind of coming out of that, our hope is that we can have some fun, that we can be that constant conversation, but that we are leading parents to have that vision for how to create a household that fosters a faith for a lifetime. I mean, that's what we want. And we don't want our kids to leave our houses and also leave our churches and leave, so much of the things that we've invested in them. And we can't always control all of that, but I think there's a lot of things we talk about this all the time, intentionally do to help foster that better. And that is some about setting boundaries, and we're going to have an episode coming up real soon about how to set good and healthy boundaries. But it's also about how to create a safe culture for conversation and questioning and exploring what's true, and having fun and building good memories and having a good relationship. And that's a very holistic thing. I mean, that's about devices and media consumption and what we do with our free time, as well as what we do in our study time, our Bible reading time, or our church time. And so we hope that we get a really broad perspective to help people build that vision for their family.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been a little bit of a unique episode, but we thought this was a really good time to maybe just kind of take a breath and really go back and again just reemphasize why we're doing what we're doing, what our ultimate goal is, and really just invite you in to check out some of the past content that we've had, and just join us, not just to consume the content, but hopefully to have a conversation, because we really do enjoy that.
And this is going to be a shorter episode, so you have time right now to click on one of the links in the description and listen to a whole nother episode.
That's right. So, absolutely. Yeah. And so if you are new to our podcast, we always wrap up with a couple of takeaways. So today, the first one is just to check out some episodes you've missed, and follow, subscribe, like our content, so you can stay connected and stay up to speed on whatever really helpful or really ridiculous thing that we have to share from week to week. But we really do encourage you just to check it out and get connected. And the second is just to be abnormal, and that's our tagline, to be abnormal, by intentionally parenting through the teen and young adult years for the purpose of sharing a love of Jesus with your children. And we say abnormal because we don't want to be normal. We don't want to be
what the culture is being.
Absolutely. And so that's what this is all about, is hopefully helping us to figure out how do we maybe go against the grain a little bit and be intentional. Again, that word intentional about what we do. So with that, we'll wrap up with our tagline, like we always do. Ready?
Be abnormal.